The invitation in the year 2347, Earth had changed. There were no more wars between countries, no hunger, no fighting for oil or land. Humanity had reached the stars. Space travel was common now, but one thing still caused fear: the unknown species. Among the most mysterious and feared were the Valari, an alien race known for their silence, beauty, and ancient traditions. They lived on a distant planet called Valerian, and no human had ever visited their world. No one dared to. The Valari were not violent, but they were cold and secretive. Their rules were old, and they followed them like unbreakable laws. Then, one day everything changed. A strange signal was received at the United Earth Space Command Station, floating above Mars. The signal wasn't in words, but it was understood clearly. We invite one human to the rite of purity. Only one. Untouched. Willing. Come alone. The message was short, but it sent waves through Earth's governments. What was the rite of purity? Why now? And why a human? Scientists, leaders, and military officials met in secret rooms. Some wanted to ignore it, others feared a trap, but one person didn't hesitate. His name was Dr. Marcus Hale. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't rich or famous. He was a linguist and historian, someone who spent his life studying ancient languages and alien cultures. When he read the message, he understood something others missed. "This is not a threat," he said calmly. "It's a request. Maybe even a cry for help." People thought he was crazy. The military warned him it could be a one-way trip. They reminded him that the Valari had never invited anyone to their world. No human had even seen a Valari in person. Still, he volunteered. "I have no family, no ties, and maybe this is what I've been waiting for all my life." A week later, Marcus stood alone in the middle of a launch pad in the Nevada desert. A silver ship, smooth as glass, appeared without warning. It hovered without sound, then slowly opened. No one came out. Everyone watched in silence as Marcus walked forward. He turned once to look at Earth's sky, bright and warm. Then he stepped inside. The door closed behind him. The inside of the ship was dark, but not scary. It felt quiet, peaceful. The walls glowed softly, showing no buttons, no lights, no controls. He sat on a smooth bench. The ship moved without shaking. It was fast, faster than anything he'd ever seen. In just minutes, stars began to shift outside the window. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time felt strange. Then the ship stopped. Outside was a planet covered in silver forests and glowing rivers. It was Valerian. The ship landed without a sound. The door opened again and Marcus stepped out onto soft blue grass. Waiting for him was a tall, shining figure. Her skin was pale gold. Her eyes were silver like the moon. She wore a robe made of light and mist. This was the alien queen. She didn't speak with her mouth. Her voice entered his mind like a calm wind. "You came, willingly." Marcus nodded. "Yes, I am Marcus Hale. Human." The queen looked at him for a long moment. Her face showed no emotion, but something in her eyes changed. "You are not what I expected." Before he could answer, she turned and began to walk. "Follow me. The rite begins soon." As he walked behind her, Marcus looked around. The alien city was quiet. No traffic, no noise. But he felt eyes watching him from every building, every shadow. The queen led him to a giant temple. It was round, floating above the ground, and glowing from the inside. They entered, and the doors closed behind them. A deep voice echoed around the hall. "He is not Valari, and not untouched. Why allow this?" It was another alien, a priest maybe. The queen answered with force in her mind. "He is willing, and that is more rare than purity." The hall went silent. Marcus stood in the center, alone. The light above him turned red. The queen stepped forward. "The rite of purity begins now. You may still turn back." Marcus looked into her eyes. He saw no kindness, no cruelty, just curiosity. "I stay." he said. The Queen nodded once. Then prepare yourself, human. What happens next will change you. And maybe us. As the floor beneath him began to rise, lifting him into the air, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What had he just agreed to? The arrival. The platform rose slowly inside the glowing temple, lifting Dr. Marcus Hale into the heart of the unknown. As he reached the top, the chamber opened into a vast dome of soft blue light. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward him. They stood in silence. Tall, smooth-skinned Valari with silver eyes and robes of flowing mist. There were no cheers, no welcome, only watchfulness. He had never felt so small. In the center of the dome stood the alien queen, taller than any of the others. Her face was calm, unreadable. Her crown floated above her head made of crystal and living light. And yet, something in her eyes had changed since they first met. She looked not at a subject or visitor, but at a puzzle. You have entered the inner circle of Valerian, her voice echoed in his mind. No human has stood here before. Marcus tried to keep his voice steady. I'm honored to be here. We shall see, she replied. A sharp metallic sound rang across the chamber. 3 smaller Valari stepped forward, each holding a long staff made of black stone. One spoke, his voice like thunder. The rite must begin. He is not Valari. We must test his truth. The Queen raised her hand, silencing them. Her eyes stayed on Marcus. Not yet. Let him see our world first. The chamber floor began to lower again. The walls melted away, revealing a massive alien city stretching to the horizon, floating towers, glowing roads of light, and crystal gardens that sang in the wind. No sound of machines, no smoke, just beauty and stillness. As they walked side by side, Marcus noticed something odd. There were no children, no old ones, no laughter, just perfect silence. Why is your city so quiet? He asked. The Queen didn't answer right away. Noise is distraction. Peace is control. We do not waste energy on emotions. So you don't feel anything? We do. We just do not show it. Emotions weaken leaders. Marcus thought about Earth, its chaos, music, and madness. Sometimes emotions make us stronger. The Queen paused. For a moment her eyes softened, but then her face returned to stone. You speak like a poet. We value logic, not poetry. As they walked, Marcus saw murals along the walls of the floating towers. They showed history, Valari warriors standing in a sea of stars, alien planets surrendering, and at the center, always, the Queen. But in every painting she stood alone. He pointed to one of the images. Where is your family? The Queen stopped walking. The air around them seemed to freeze. Queens do not have families. We are chosen by bloodline and ritual. Love is not part of the throne. Her voice flickered just for a moment. None have ever asked me that. They arrived at a silver gate. It opened silently, revealing a long hallway filled with soft floating lights. This was the Chamber of Memory. Before the rite begins, you must face the truth of your own mind, she said. Your truth, not ours. Marcus stepped inside. The room pulsed with a quiet hum. The air felt heavy. As he stood in the center, a strange energy touched his skin, cool and soft like wind from the past. Suddenly, the lights around him dimmed. A hologram formed in the air, not from the Valari, from his own memory. A young girl appeared, his sister, crying, bleeding, a ruined city behind her. Marcus froze. The Queen and her guards watched from the edge, silent. No, Marcus whispered. Not this one. The hologram played the day he had buried his own sister after a failed peace mission on Titan. He had been too slow. He had made the wrong call. She had died because of him. The memory ended. Silence returned. One of the alien priests leaned toward the queen. He is broken, not pure. But the queen didn't agree. She stepped forward. Her voice entered Marcus's mind, not as a command but a whisper. You carry guilt, pain, shame. Yet, you came anyway. Why? Marcus looked up. His voice shook, but his words were firm. Because running from pain is easy. Facing it is what makes us human. For the first time, the queen took a step back. Her expression, usually perfect and still, flickered with confusion. Then quietly, she turned to her priests. His soul is not clean, but it is strong. Allow him to continue. The priests didn't argue. Later, in the garden of the temple, Marcus sat alone. The sky above was filled with stars he had never seen before. The plants around him glowed softly in the dark. He felt like he was on a different plane of reality, between dream and memory. Suddenly he felt her presence. The queen stood behind him without guards. Do you hate me for showing your pain? No, he replied. Pain is truth. I'd rather be seen for who I am than hide behind lies. She sat beside him, quiet, still, watching the stars. We do not understand your kind, your chaos, your need to connect. But something about you unsettles me. Why? Because you are not afraid of me. Marcus turned to her. Should I be? The queen did not answer, but in her silence, he sensed the truth. Even she didn't know anymore. Then she said something that surprised him. Tomorrow the second trial begins. Many do not survive it. But you may be different. He looked at her carefully. Different how? She stood slowly, her robe moving like mist around her. You bring something we have not seen in 1,000 years. You bring change. She disappeared into the shadows, leaving Marcus alone with the stars and a growing weight in his chest. The first trial, the sun never rose on Valerian. The sky was always dark, lit only by soft glowing clouds and the gentle shimmer of floating moons. But as the trial day arrived, something shifted in the air, like the planet itself was holding its breath. Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the chamber of trials. It was carved into a mountain made of living crystal. Light pulsed through the walls like veins under skin. He wore a simple robe given to him by the queen's attendants. Light, silver and smooth as water. He felt calm, but he knew that wouldn't last. The first trial is of the mind. The queen's voice echoed in his thoughts, though she was nowhere to be seen. You must face memory, without shield, without silence. Marcus stepped into the chamber. The door closed behind him, sealing with a hiss. He was alone. The room was dark, not empty, just waiting. Then the floor lit up in a circle beneath his feet. Slowly, the light expanded outward, forming symbols. Ancient ones, not Valari, not human. Something older. Suddenly he felt a pull behind his eyes, like someone reaching inside his mind, not to take but to open. A figure appeared in front of him. A man, tall, with sharp eyes and a soldier's posture. Marcus blinked. It was his father. You disappointed me. The voice was cold. The same voice he hadn't heard since his father died during the Earth-Mars border crisis. You ran from war. You became a reader of books. You let your sister die. No, Marcus said quietly. I didn't run. I chose peace. The figure didn't move. His face remained like stone. You hid. And you still are. Marcus looked down. He felt the old anger rise, but he breathed through it. Maybe I did hide. But I came here. I walked into this place, alone. The figure stepped forward. You think that makes you brave? Or just foolish? The light in the chamber flared. More figures appeared. His sister, crying. The people he couldn't save. The Valari watching, from the shadows. And then finally, The Queen. "You are not clean," her voice repeated in a dozen whispers. His heart began to race. His body felt cold. The chamber wasn't just showing him the past, it was feeding on his doubt. He fell to one knee. "You were never chosen," the voices whispered. "You just survived. You are not worthy." Elsewhere beyond the chamber, the Queen watched from a high balcony, her silver eyes fixed on the glowing structure. Her advisors stood behind her. "He will break," said the high priest. "They all do eventually." "He is too emotional," said another. "It clouds him." But the Queen said nothing. She could feel something unfamiliar, something pulling at her own thoughts. Curiosity. She had seen thousands of trials, none like this one. No Valari had ever shown such emotional resistance. Yet Marcus, this fragile, imperfect human, held on longer than most. She touched her temple lightly, reaching into the psychic link between her and the chamber. And then something happened. She felt him. Not just his fear, but his choice. Inside the chamber, Marcus stood again. The voices were still there. The images still twisted around him. But now he walked through them. "Yes," he said aloud, his voice clear. "I carry guilt. Yes, I failed. But failure didn't end me." The holograms flickered. "I failed, and still chose to come here." A wave of heat burst from the center of the room. The chamber cracked slightly. Light poured from the walls. The Queen, still watching, took a step back. "He's pushing back," one of the priests said in disbelief. "He's rewriting the memory path," another whispered. Impossible. But it was happening. The chamber, designed to reflect weakness, was being turned into something else. Marcus wasn't fighting the pain. He was using it. Back in the room, the figures began to melt. The shadows retreated. One final image remained. His sister. She stood in front of him, silent. He walked forward and knelt. "I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner," he whispered. "But I've carried you every step since." The image nodded once and faded. Silence returned. The chamber glowed bright white. Then the door behind him slowly opened. He had passed. The Queen met him at the exit. He looked tired, sweaty, but calm. She studied him for a long moment. "You didn't erase your pain," she said softly. "No," he replied. "I respected it." "Interesting," she whispered. The priests behind her stayed quiet. Not because they agreed, but because they had no words left. "We are not built to handle emotion this way," the Queen said inside her own mind. "He is something new." Marcus raised his head. "You asked for someone untouched. I'm not, but maybe that's what you needed." She didn't respond. At first. Then she stepped closer, something no Valari monarch had ever done during the trials. "You are impure, flawed, but you are not weak. And that is unsettling. There are 2 trials left. The next one will not forgive mistakes." Marcus nodded. "Then I'll keep walking." As he turned to leave, the Queen spoke once more. Not in command, but in something almost like wonder. "Why are you not afraid of me?" He stopped, looked over his shoulder. "Because you're not afraid of me either. Not anymore." She didn't answer. But in her silence, something ancient cracked, a wall inside her that had stood for centuries. The Queen's doubt. The night on Valerian was colder than usual. Wind moved gently across the silver towers and empty gardens, carrying whispers that had no words. In a palace made of living stone, the alien Queen stood alone by her reflection pool. The water did not show her face, but instead showed Marcus Hale, walking alone through the city, watched silently by guards in shadows. She stared at him, studied him. Not as a ruler watches a visitor, but as a hunter watches a creature she does not understand. He was unpredictable, and unpredictability was dangerous. He passed the trial of memory, she whispered to herself. But what did he break inside me to do it? Behind her, a door opened. A tall Valari priest entered, his voice sharp and cold. Your Majesty, this human grows too bold. He speaks with confidence. He walks with pride. The others are watching. She did not turn to face him. They should watch, she replied. He's the first to survive the rite in decades. And that makes him a threat, the priest said. You show interest in him. Care even. That is not our way. The queen finally turned. Her silver eyes glowed faintly. Neither is fear. And yet here you are. The priest bowed and left. She stood in silence again, but her mind was full of noise. Elsewhere in the palace, Marcus wandered the queen's private gardens. They were nothing like Earth's. No birds, no bees, no flowers. Only silver trees and vines that whispered like voices when the wind passed through them. He paused near a stone bench, sat, rested. Everything here felt heavy, as if even beauty had a cost. He was not alone for long. The queen entered the garden quiet as mist. She wore no crown tonight, no guards, no armor, only a long robe of silver thread that shimmered like moonlight. Marcus stood quickly. I didn't know this place was off limits. It's not, she said. Not anymore. He looked at her carefully. She seemed different, less like a queen, more like a question. I came to see you, she said. Why? Because I don't understand you. She walked closer. You fear nothing, not even me. I fear plenty, Marcus said. But fear shouldn't stop a person from walking forward. The queen tilted her head. Our kind does not walk forward blindly. We calculate, we plan, we survive by knowing what comes next. And what happens when something unexpected comes? Marcus asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she sat beside him. Silence. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, she looked at him, not through him, but into him. Why did you really come here, human? The truth. Marcus didn't rush his answer. Earth thinks this is just diplomacy, a cultural exchange, maybe even a trap. But for me, this was personal. She raised one elegant brow. Personal? I read about your rituals, your loneliness, your power. It reminded me of something, of someone. She leaned slightly closer. Who? Me. The words surprised even him. The queen watched his face, her eyes searching. You see yourself? In me? No, he said. I see what happens when people carry too much alone, when duty becomes a wall between who you are and who you could be. The wind picked up. The trees whispered louder. She looked away. I was chosen before I understood what that meant. They gave me the crown and took everything else. Even your name? Especially my name. Marcus looked down. What do they call you when no one's listening? The queen smiled. It was not warm, but it was real. No one ever asks that. He didn't press. He let the silence stay. Then, softly, she said, Silai. Marcus whispered it. Silai. She closed her eyes, just for a second, as if the sound of it was a weight removed from her chest. From a high tower, the same priest watched them through, a glowing crystal. His eyes narrowed. This cannot be allowed, he hissed. Emotion is infection. It spreads. It weakens. He turned and activated a hidden panel. A shadowy figure appeared, an old Valari with no title, no face. The human grows too close, said the priest. Then remove him, replied the voice, before he changes her. Back in the garden, Selai stood. Tomorrow is the trial of the body, she said. Most do not finish it. And if I don't? Marcus asked. You will not die, she said. But you will not be the same. He stood too. Looked at her closely. Neither will you. She didn't deny it. Instead, she stepped forward, and for the first time, she touched him, only briefly. Her fingers brushed his hand, but in that moment, she saw something, a child's laughter, a broken promise, a man who carried guilt not for his weakness but for his hope. She pulled her hand back. Good night, Marcus Hale. Good night, Silai. She walked away into the silver fog, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Far above, in the chamber where judgment is passed, a vote was called. 7 high priests gathered. One spoke. The queen has forgotten her place, another added. The human infects her thoughts. They all agreed. Except one. An old priest, silent until now, finally spoke. No, she has not forgotten. She is remembering. And that may be worse. The queen's doubt. The palace was quiet, but the queen's thoughts were loud. She stood alone in the Chamber of Echoes, a sacred place at the heart of Valarian, where ancient rulers once came to hear the voices of their ancestors. But tonight, there were no voices, only silence. And Doubt Silai, that was the name she had not spoken in centuries, watched the still waters below her feet. The reflection looking back was not a queen. It was a woman, tired, unsure, curious. Ever since the human had arrived, something had begun to crack inside her. And now she felt it, the soft, slow breaking of a wall she thought would stand forever. Marcus Hale, she whispered. Even his name sounded human, soft, imperfect, alive. Meanwhile, in a different wing of the palace, Marcus walked quietly through long corridors carved from glowing stone. Valari guards watched him without speaking. They did not blink. They did not move. They were not there to protect him. They were there to contain him. He wasn't surprised. He had seen their eyes after the first trial. Eyes that used to look down on him now seemed unsure, curious, afraid. The chamber doors opened before him without touch. The queen had summoned him again, but this time it wasn't for ceremony. She had asked him to meet her in her private sanctum, a place no other species had ever entered. Even Marcus, brave as he was, felt a chill in his chest. So this is what trust looks like, he whispered to himself. But the feeling in his gut didn't feel like trust. It felt like a test. The queen was already there, standing before a wide open window. A black sky stretched far and endless above, the glowing towers. She didn't turn when he entered. You walk like a man without fear, she said. That's not true, Marcus replied. I'm scared. I just don't let it stop me. She turned. Her face was calm, but her eyes were not silver, sharp, glowing slightly in the dark. That's what I don't understand about humans. You burn with emotion, with pain, and still, you keep moving. It's because we know we're small, Marcus said, and we don't want to waste the little time we have. That answer made her pause. We live for 1,000 years, she said, but none of us remember why we started. She motioned to the wall behind her. It lit up with images, past Valari queens, all proud, all still, all alone. This is the price of the crown, power, without company. Is that what you want? Marcus asked. More silence? More control? The queen's voice dropped to a whisper. I don't know anymore. She walked toward him, slow and careful. There was no anger in her steps, no command, just weight, as if each step cost her something. Do you know what the second trial is? She asked. I've heard whispers, Marcus replied. Pain, endurance, something designed to break the body. Not just break, she said. It separates the mind from flesh. It forces truth out of muscle and bone. And if I survive it? He asked. Then you are more than human. He held her gaze. And what if I don't? Her voice was like steel wrapped in silk. Then I'll remember you. They sat beside the soulfire lantern, a glowing blue flame that never died. Its light was soft, real. For a long time, they said nothing, but something passed between them, unspoken and alive. Selai reached out, brushing her fingers lightly across Marcus's wrist. Her skin was cool, her touch slow, measured. In that moment, something strange happened. She saw his thoughts, and he saw hers. Flashes, a human child reading under a broken lamp. A Valari girl screaming during a trial, her voice stolen forever. A family torn apart by duty. A people ruled by fear. A man who wanted to understand more than survive. A queen who wanted to feel before she turned to stone. Selai pulled her hand back as if burned. "What did you do?" she asked. "Nothing," Marcus said. "I didn't. Bush, you let me in." She looked away. This was a mistake. Or maybe it was a beginning. Somewhere deep in the palace, high priests watched the flame change color. A signal. A warning. "She is becoming unstable," said one. "The human must be removed," said another. "Or controlled." One of them opened a sealed chamber. Inside was something not seen for centuries. An artifact. Alive. Waiting. "Release the Echo Beast," said the priest. "Let it be the second trial. And if he dies, then the queen will forget him, like all the others." Back in the sanctum, Marcus stood to leave. "Thank you for tonight," he said softly, "for showing me who you are." Selai didn't respond. But as he reached the door, her voice stopped him. "Do you believe it's possible?" she asked. "What? To lead and still feel?" He looked over his shoulder. "Only if you're brave enough to be seen." He walked out into the cold corridor. The queen remained in her chamber, standing in silence, staring at the flickering flame. For the first time in 400 years, she felt, and for the first time, she doubted. Not him, herself. The second trial, the body. The sky above Valerian shimmered with a false calm. Below it, in the hollow of a silver canyon, the gates to the trial of endurance opened for the first time in decades. Inside the canyon, the ground pulsed faintly. The walls were alive with slow blue light. Energy moved like veins under stone. This was not just a place of testing, it was a place of pain. Marcus Hale stood at the entrance. His robe had been taken. His name was gone. Before the trial, the Valari stripped all identity. He was now a shape, a soul, a body, nothing more. Above him 1,000 Valari gathered on floating balconies, silent as shadows. And at the highest point of all stood the queen, Selai. But today she looked different. Her eyes were guarded again, her expression unreadable. She had to appear as a ruler. But inside, her thoughts were storming. "They've changed the trial," she whispered to herself. "This is not what was agreed." She looked to the high priest standing behind her. None would meet her eyes. Below, Marcus entered the stone circle. The floor beneath him closed like a lid, sealing him in. A low vibration filled the air, like distant thunder. Suddenly, light exploded from the walls. The chamber began to shift. Stone turned to liquid. Gravity bent. Air grew thick like syrup. The voice of the trial rang out. "The body is the cage. The cage must be broken. Only pain reveals truth." Without warning, the Echo Beast emerged. It didn't walk, it glided. 10 feet tall, translucent skin. Countless limbs folding and unfolding like waves. It had no eyes, no mouth. But it could sense weakness. Marcus took a step back. Even he hadn't expected this. On the balcony, Selai's hands gripped the railing. "They summoned the Echo Beast," she said in shock. "That creature is not part of the rite. This will kill him." The high priest beside her gave no answer, but inside he smiled. "If the human dies, your heart dies with him," he thought, "and the crown becomes yours again." Inside the arena, Marcus moved slowly. The Echo Beast didn't charge, it circled. Him, feeding on his heartbeat, his breath, his fear. He remembered Selai's words. This trial separates the mind from flesh. It forces truth out of muscle and bone. So he stopped moving. He closed his eyes. He let go of fear. The beast paused, confused. Marcus opened his arms. "I won't run," he said quietly. The beast struck. A limb hit his shoulder, bone cracked. He fell, but didn't scream. He got up, another strike. His ribs shook. Blood in his mouth. He rose again. The Valari watched, some with wide eyes. Others turned away, but Selai watched every second. Her hands shook now, not with rage, but helplessness. For 400 years she had never once broken a rule, and now she wanted to break all of them. The beast reared back. Its final attack would kill him. Selai stood. Her voice echoed across the sky. "Stop the trial." The priests turned, in horror. "You have no authority to interrupt. I am the queen." Her mind reached down, past the canyon, into the circle of pain. At the very moment the beast struck again, Marcus reached inside himself, not to resist, but to understand. Saw his pain. He embraced it, his broken childhood, his guilt, his crushed hope. He stopped being a body. He became will. And the beast stopped. The echo beast trembled. It saw something in Marcus. No Valari had shown it before. Not strength, not pride, but complete acceptance of pain. The beast backed, away. And then it vanished into thin air. The chamber dimmed. The floor lifted. Marcus rose from the trial chamber, broken, bleeding, barely standing, but he was alive. The queen rushed to meet him, breaking all ritual. She knelt beside him, her hands glowing with alien light. "Why didn't you fight back?" she asked, her voice trembling. Marcus looked up at her through one swollen eye. "Because pain only wins if we fear it. You could have died. Then I'd die trying to understand you." Her fingers brushed his face. Soft, frightened, human. And for the first time in Valari history, their queen shed a tear. One drop of silver light, seen by thousands. The crowd gasped. A priest whispered, "The queen has cracked." Another whispered back, "No, she has awakened." But not everyone was pleased. Deep in the shadows of the palace, a council met in secret. She must be removed. She has chosen a human over the code. The rite ends. The crown must pass. One voice in the dark whispered something, darker still. "If the queen will not destroy the human, we will make him destroy her." As Marcus was taken to recover, he looked back at Selai, and for the first time, he was no longer just a visitor. He was a symbol of change, of danger, of something that couldn't be controlled, and the real trial was only beginning. The third trial. The heart. The stars above Valerian shimmered like frozen tears in the sky. Inside, the queen's personal chamber, beyond walls of crystal, behind guards who stood in silence, Marcus lay still. Wrapped in golden thread, his wounds healing under alien light, he breathed slowly. Every breath was pain, but it was his, and he was still alive. But this time, surviving wasn't enough. The second trial had changed him, and it had changed her. Queen. Selai stood beside his resting place, eyes on his bruised face. She had not left his side since the end of the trial of the body. Her silver robe had been untouched by wind, but her mind was a storm. He did not fight, she thought. He endured, not as a warrior, but as something else entirely. Behind her, two high priests stood like statues, their faces cold. "The third trial must begin," said the first. "He is not ready," she said. "He is, or he is not. But we cannot wait. Connection is dangerous, Your Majesty." "Then maybe danger is the cure," she whispered. Later, Marcus woke to the sound of wind chimes, soft notes made by strands of energy. Selai stood at the foot of his bed. No guards, no formal words, only truth between them now. The third trial begins at midnight, she said. What is it? He asked, voice dry. It is not of the body, not of the mind. It is of the heart. We step into the empathy chamber together, no lies, no barriers. You see me. I see you. Everything. Marcus sat up slowly. Everything. Our truest selves. No masks, no hiding. And if we fail, then we break. Both of us. Forever. Midnight arrived. The empathy chamber was unlike any other room on Valerian. Floating in the center of a calm lake, it had no walls. Only a sphere of living light that pulsed with a heartbeat not its own. Marcus and Sci-fi stood inside, alone, facing each other. The trial will begin when you speak your name, a voice echoed. Marcus nodded. Marcus Hale. Sci-fi hesitated. Then quietly, Sci-fi, daughter of silence. The chamber pulsed, and the world around them vanished. They stood inside a shared vision, built from both their minds, a forest from earth twisted into a Valari temple. Rain fell in one corner, fire burned in another, and their memories came alive. Marcus saw Sci-fi as a child, terrified, taken from her mother, trained by priests to never smile, to never weep, to sit on a throne made of duty and cold tradition. He watched her first trial, the screaming, the silence that followed, and the day she was crowned not because she was strong, but because she had nothing left to lose. They taught me to rule through distance, she said, watching her young self cry alone in a silver room. Because closeness makes you vulnerable. Then she saw him, young Marcus, holding his sister's hand in a refugee camp on Mars, sleeping under broken roofs, running from wars started by men too far away to bleed. She saw the moment he lost. Her, the scream, the blood, the silence. She gasped and turned away. You carry this like armor, she whispered, but it's killing you. And you wear your crown like a cage, he replied. The chamber shook, their pain twisted together. But then, something broke through. A memory neither of them had lived. A shared vision formed, a child, half human, half Valari, standing at the center of a future temple, surrounded not by guards, but by voices of peace. Earth and Valerian, not enemies but allies, they both stepped toward the vision. But the moment they touched it, the chamber cracked, a black wave struck them from outside. The priests had broken into the chamber. This must end, one shouted. This bond will unmake the order. Sci-fi tried to hold Marcus's hand, but the vision collapsed. The empathy field fell apart. Both were thrown from the chamber, landing hard on the lake's surface. Guards rushed in. The high priest stepped forward. This was not a trial. This was treason. Sci-fi rose slowly, her voice trembling with rage. No, this was truth. Then truth is the enemy now. Marcus stood beside her. You're afraid of what we saw. It was a hallucination, a dream. It was a possibility, Sci-fi said, a path to something new. The priests turned to her, hands raised. You are no longer fit to rule. One stepped forward with a glowing staff. Marcus moved to defend her. Don't, but Sci-fi stepped in front of him. This is my fight. Her crown lit up, not with power, but with memory. I am queen not because I was trained, but because I chose silence for the sake of order. But silence has a cost. She looked at Marcus. And he taught me that some costs are too high. She raised her hands, and the lake answered. Light burst across the temple, shattering the staffs of the priests. The guards dropped to one knee, not in fear, in choice. That night, Sci-fi and Marcus stood on the highest tower. She looked out across her city. The third trial is complete, she said. Did we pass? Marcus asked. No, she said softly. We broke it. Is that bad? She turned to him. No, it's how every new beginning starts. And behind them, for the first time in Valari history, the crown pulsed not with cold light, but with warmth. The offer, The city of Valarian did not sleep, not anymore. For the first time in centuries, the silence was broken. Not by war, but by voices. Whispers became chants. Chants became songs. Valari walked through the glowing streets, not in lines, not under orders, but side by side, talking, feeling. Some were confused, some angry, some alive for the first time. It had begun, not with a battle, not with fire, but with a choice. Inside the Queen's chamber, Selai stood before the mirror of judgment. It was not glass. It was memory. Ancient minds, stored in crystal form. All past Valari rulers, speaking as one. They were not pleased. You allowed a human into our rights. You let your emotions compromise the crown. You broke tradition. Selai stood tall. Her eyes were calm but sharp. I didn't break tradition. I ended a lie. The mirror shimmered. The faces of the old queens twisted in disapproval. You are no longer Valari. Maybe not, she said softly. Maybe I'm something new. And then she turned away. The mirror cracked behind her. The past would not rule the future. Across the palace, Marcus stood in the Hall of Stones, once used for executions, now glowing with peace. He stared at the world beyond the balcony, his body still ached, his thoughts were still stormed, but his heart? Calm. He had faced pain, both inside and out. He had walked into the storm of another species and not only survived, it had changed with him. He heard soft footsteps. He turned. Selai stood at the doorway, holding a crown in both hands. But not the Valari crown. A new one. Smaller, made from metal and memory, half from earth alloy, half from Valarian crystal. It's time, she said. For what? For the offer. Together they stepped into the high assembly hall, a place where no non-Valari had ever stood. Thousands gathered, lining the spiral balconies above. High priests, soldiers, citizens, even children now, allowed to witness what no one had ever dared to dream. Selai stood on the central platform. She raised the new crown into the air, and silence fell like snow. Our world was ruled by silence. We were taught that emotion was weakness, that change was chaos, that love was a disease. She turned to Marcus. But this human walked into our fire with open hands. He gave nothing but truth, and received nothing but pain. And still, he stood. She looked back at her people. So I offer him what no alien has ever been given. Co-rulership. Not as a servant, not as a trophy, but as an equal. Gasps, cries, murmurs of rebellion, and then a scream, a blast. The floor shook, a wall exploded. The radical faction had arrived. Valari extremists in shadow armor stormed. The chamber, weapons drawn. She has corrupted the throne, one of them shouted. Kill the human, restore the old order. Chaos erupted, guards clashed with rebels, lasers struck crystal, citizens fled. Selai stepped in front of Marcus, her shield activated, glowing, around them both. They'll kill you to silence me, she said. Then they're too late, Marcus replied. You're already louder than all of them. But the rebels had numbers, and they were closing in. Then, another sound. Not weapons. Footsteps. From the back entrance, Valari citizens arrived, unarmed. Dozens, then hundreds, standing between the rebels and the throne. Enough, said an elder. She is our queen, said a young girl, and he is no longer a stranger. The rebels hesitated, and then they lowered their weapons. When the smoke cleared, the chamber stood in silence once again. But it was no longer fear. It was, Selai turned to Marcus. I offer you a choice. Return to Earth. Tell your story. Or stay. Marcus looked at her, at the people, at the sky. Then he smiled. I didn't come for politics. I came to understand. He took the new crown from her hands. And now, I do. I'll stay. A soft light surrounded them both. The crown glowed. The Hall of Stones became the Hall of Union. From that day forward, Valerian changed. The queen no longer ruled alone. Her voice was balanced by his. Their decisions became stories. Their laws became bridges, and soon, Earth responded. A second invitation was sent, and this time, millions watched, not with fear, but with hope. In her chamber, years later, Salai stood by the same mirror of judgment. Now it showed nothing, because history no longer spoke for her. She had become history. Marcus entered, smiling. "You think they're ready?" he asked. "Not yet," she said, "but neither were we." They looked out over a world reborn, not by force, but by connection, and, somewhere in the stars, a new story waited to begin. The end.